there was a study done by Ali Crum's lab at Stanford where essentially they took participants and put them into two groups and gave each one a milkshake. The first group got told the milkshake had tons of nutrients, it was good for them, and the second group got told the opposite, that it was fatty, full of sugar, and not good for you. And then they took bloods, they took their lab reports, and they looked at what the responses were to drinking the milkshake. They found, what would you expect them to find? That the first group had a much lower insulin response than the others, and that everything was better, essentially health-wise, in the first group than the second group. And yet the catch, they were the same milkshake. And why is this actually interesting? Well, I'd hope you find it interesting, because I do. But the same milkshake, depending on what we believed about it, had a different effect. Which I just think is crazy, because it shows that so much of our thoughts impact our biology. There was another study that something to do with a gluten intolerance, and they told people this food has gluten in it. They gave it to people with a gluten intolerance, and as you'd expect, hives of people going to the toilet, diarrhea, everything went to shit. There wasn't even gluten in the building. The food had no gluten, there was no gluten in the building. And that gluten intolerance was genetic, and it just brings into the question, are your expectations even more powerful than your genes can be? And that just makes me think it's all in our heads. We give so many reasons as to why things can fail, as to why we're not going to be the ones that are going to get things to work, as to why we can't be the people we see on the internet doing really well. And it's like you see these people, they've started a business, that can never be me. You realise that these people are just humans, and it's hard because status is a really big thing, especially over the internet, and it's so difficult to get that out of your mind, because it's an evolutionary basis. People who had prestige and status were the ones who had greater evolutionary fitness, so those are the ones that we tend to try and emulate. But I feel like with social media and the modern landscape, our perception of status is warped, because people go viral on TikTok, and that becomes a sense of status and fame, when all they've done is eaten as many eggs as possible in one day. It's like those kind of things are what make people famous now. It's not working hard or having mastery over a certain topic. It can be, but it isn't always. And status is just such a big thing. It's just, we have so many reasons to make excuses, but there are so many people out there, and there is an infinite amount of resources out there. It's not zero sum. If someone has an opportunity, it doesn't mean you can't get it either. You might not get the same opportunity as them, but that doesn't mean you can't get an opportunity. And that's where envy comes into it, because envy is so destructive. Is that if you envy someone else, we should focus on what we can do about it and not on the other person themselves, because they're not doing it to hurt you. It's not personal. But if it feels that way, then you should ask yourself, why do you want what they want? Do you want to live their life 24/7? Do you want to be them? And most of the time the answer is no, but it's still so difficult to get it out of your head, because you think, damn, that could be me, but it's not. But that doesn't mean you should try. You shouldn't try. Because you have to try, because otherwise you guarantee that you will never get what they want. Procrastination is one of those things where you're afraid of starting, but by not starting, you're slowly guaranteeing the one thing you were so afraid of, which is failing. And starting is not easy, but you have to do it, and it's just consistency, and you just got to stick to it, because that's got to work. You got to take your opportunities, say yes, but also know when to say no. There's so many dichotomies here, but being consistent is important. But it is all in your head. Physically, there is nothing stopping you. There is no reason as to why you can't succeed. So why not start? Why not try? Because you don't know where it'll take you.